I'm Thuran Ramacharaka. This is the fourth video in a series called Karma. The book Karma by Annie Besant. Molding Karma. The man who has set himself deliberately to build the future will realize, as his knowledge increases, that he can do more than mold his own character, thus making his future destiny. He begins to understand that he is at the center of things in a very real sense, a living, active, self-determining being, and that he can act upon circumstances as well as upon himself. He has long been accustoming himself to follow the great ethical laws laid down for the guidance of humanity by the divine teachers who have been born from age to age, and he now grasps the fact that these laws are based on fundamental principles in nature, and that morality is science applied to conduct. He sees that in his daily life he can neutralize the ill results that would follow from some ill deed by bringing to bear upon the same point a corresponding force for good. A man sends himself a man sends against him an evil thought, he might meet it with another of its own kind, and then the two thought forms running together like two drops of water would be reinforced, strengthened, each by each. But this one against whom the evil thought is flying is a knower of karma now, and he meets the malignant form with the force of compassion and shatters it. The broken form can no longer be ensouled with elemental life. The life melts back to its own, the form disintegrates, its power for evil is thus destroyed by compassion, and hatred ceases by love. I'm grinning because elsewhere on my channel, I posted something about Satanism or Saturnism and an alchemical how-to. I think the thumbnail said something about Satanism, alchemical how-to. And it mentioned, it went through an alchemical kind of story, I think, as I posted it. Yeah, a story that I wrote about coming face to face with the planet Saturn and learning Saturn's lesson, and learning that compassion, as I recall in the story, was the answer to that. All right, that's why I was grinning. Delusive forms of falsehood go forth into the astral world. The man of knowledge sends against them forms of truth. Purity breaks up foulness, and charity selfish greed. As knowledge increases, this action becomes direct and purposive. The thought is aimed with definite intent, winged with potent will. I want you to please bear in mind that in many of these sentences that I'm reading right now, there are implications for techniques, action to be taken, ways to go about doing things. Now, by now in this playlist, you have some familiarity with how techniques for personal involvement in achievement training are constructed, because I have not withheld, I have been forthright about methodology and about how the things that I have presented for you to do are structured and why they are structured that way. And I have said that such awareness of how this stuff works, how it's put together, how to form sequences of things and why they are the way they are, is an important part of the work itself. Proceeding with such awareness is at least half the picture. So I have been forthright about it, holding nothing back. So when you hear things in let's say a book like this that I'm narrating to you. The last few sentences here, I mean, ever since the beginning of this video, there's been much in here that can be applied. I could build training exercises to go with each one of these things, but much of this work is already being done if you have been actively participating in everything laid out in this playlist so far. And to follow, practical instruction type stuff. It all does hinge around these principles that are being discussed. But you can take for yourself then, any of this material and build training exercises, practice material out of the knowledge that's laid out right here, and add such things into your own practice that I have laid out for you. You can go ahead and do that. I mean, once you have the familiarity, with how this all works, how to turn theory into practice, you can go ahead and do that. You're welcome to do it. But don't waste time. Don't waste effort and time. I mean, be as effective and efficient as possible. If you see that, you hear a sentence in here like purity breaks up foulness and charity breaks up selfish greed, or any of this other things, like any of these other things. The broken form can no longer be ensouled with elemental life, or meeting a malignant thought form with the force of compassion, shattering that thought form. And the broken form then can no longer be ensouled with elemental life. If you turn these things into practice and you realize that, I mean, if you think about, hey, I can build a training exercise and I can start implementing, what I learned from that training exercise that I might do in the morning and the evening into my daily activities, make conscious efforts along these lines. And, and then you realize, wait a minute, I'm already doing that with what work was given to me here in this playlist that I'm already doing. I'm already taking care of this thing. Then just stick with what's already been given. I have pretty much, I'm systematically building into this playlist things to do that I'm, explicating for you that do take care of all this stuff. Knowing what's going on, having a deeper and deeper understanding of it, which is why I'm giving you this book called Karma, will assist you. If you can come up with something new to do from this kind of material, that's good too. Just, there's no need to be redundant. Okay. Evil karma is checked this way in its very inception. And nothing is left to make a karmic tie between the one who shot a shaft of injury and the one who burned it up by pardon. The divine teachers who spake as man, having authority on the duty of overcoming evil with good, based their precepts on their knowledge of the law. Their followers, who obey without fully seeing the scientific foundation of the precept, lessen the heavy karma that would be generated if they answered hate with hate. But men of knowledge deliberately destroy the evil forms. I am trying here, my aside here at now, at this moment, at this juncture, is to say I am trying to heighten your knowledge of such affairs, so that you know the reasons why, and you know how much better this way. You can go forth with knowledge. Men of knowledge deliberately destroy the evil forms, understanding the facts on which the teachings of the masters have ever been based. And sterilizing the seed of evil, they prevent a future harvest of pain. at a stage which is comparatively advanced in comparison with that of the slowly drifting average humanity. A man will not only build his own character and work with deliberate intent on the thought forms that come in his way, but he will begin to see the past and thus more accurately to gauge the present, tracing karmic causes onwards to their effects. This is very important for what we call personal evolution. This is part of it. He becomes able to modify the future by consciously setting forces to work designed to interact with others already in motion. Knowledge enables him to utilize law with the same certainty with which scientists utilize it in every department of nature. Let us pause for a moment to consider the laws of motion. A body has been set into motion and is moving along a definite line. If another force be brought to bear upon it, differing in direction from the one that gave it its initial impulse, the body will move along another line, a line compounded of the two impulses. No energy will be lost, but part of the force which gave the initial impulse will be used up in partially counteracting the new, and the resultant direction along which the body will move will be that neither of the first force nor of the second, but of the interplay of the two. A physicist can calculate exactly at what angle he must strike a moving body in order to cause it to move in a desired direction. And although the body itself may be beyond his immediate reach, he can send after it a force of calculated velocity to strike it at a different angle, thus deflecting it from its previous course and impelling it along a new line. In this, there is no violation of law, no interference with law, only the utilization of law by knowledge. The bending of natural forces to accomplish the purpose of the human will. If we apply this principle to the molding of karma, we shall readily see, apart from the fact that law is inviolable, that there is no, so to speak, interference with karma when we modify its action by knowledge. We are using karmic force to affect karmic results. And once more, we conquer nature by obedience. Let us now suppose that the advanced student, glancing backwards over the past, sees lines of past karma converging to a point of action of an undesirable kind. He can introduce a new force among these converging energies and so modify the event, which must be the resultant of all the forces concerned in its generation and ripening. For such action, he requires knowledge. Not only the power to see the past and to trace the lines which connect it with the present, but also to calculate exactly the influence that the force he introduces will exercise as modifying the resultant, and further the effects that will flow from this resultant considered as cause. In this way, he may lessen or destroy the results of evil wrought by himself in the past, by the good forces he pours forth into his karmic stream. He cannot undo the past. He cannot destroy it. But so far as its effects are still in the future, he can modify them or reverse them by the new forces he brings to bear as causes taking part in their production. In all this, he is merely utilizing the law, and he works with the certainty of the scientist, who balances one force against another and, unable to destroy a single unit of energy, can yet make a body move as he will by a calculation of angles and of movements. Similarly, karma may be accelerated or delayed, and thus again will undergo modification by the action of the surroundings amid which it is worked out. Let's put the same thing again a little differently. For the conception is an important one, and it is a fruitful one. As knowledge grows, it becomes easier and easier to get rid of the karma of the past. Inasmuch as causes which are working out to their accomplishment all come within the sight of the soul, which is approaching its liberation, as it looks back over past lives, as it glances down the vista of centuries along which it has been slowly climbing, it's able to see there the way in which its bonds were made. The causes which set it in motion, It is able to see how many of those causes have worked themselves out and are exhausted, how many of those causes are still working themselves out. It is able not only to look backwards, but also to look forwards and see the effects that these causes will produce. So that, glancing in front, the effects that will be produced are seen, and glancing behind, the causes that will bring about these effects are also visible. There is no difficulty in the supposition that just as you find in ordinary physical nature, that knowledge of certain laws enables us to predict the result and to see the law that brings that result about, so we can transfer this idea onto a higher plane. And can imagine a condition of the developed soul in which it is able to see the karmic causes that it has set going behind it, and also the karmic effects through which it has to work in the future. With such a knowledge of causes and a vision of their working out, it is possible to introduce fresh causes to neutralize these effects. And by utilizing the law and by relying absolutely on its unchanging and unvarying character, and by a careful calculation of the forces set going to make the effects in the future those which we desire. It's a mere matter of calculation. Suppose vibrations of hatred have been set going in the past. We can deliberately set to work to quench these vibrations and to prevent their working out into the present and the future by setting up against them vibrations of love. Just in the same way as we can take a wave of sound and then a second wave and setting the two going one slightly after the other so that the vibrations of the denser part of the one shall correspond to the rarer part of the other, and thus out of sounds we can make silence by interference. So in the higher regions it is possible by love and hate vibrations used by knowledge and controlled by will to bring karmic causes to an ending and so to reach equilibrium, which is another word for liberation. That knowledge is beyond the reach of the enormous majority. What the majority can do is this, if they choose to utilize the science of the soul. They may take the evidence of experts on this subject. They may take the moral precepts of the great religious teachers of the world, and by obedience to these precepts, to which their intuition responds although they may not understand the method of their working, they may effect in the doing that which also may be effected by distinct and deliberate knowledge. So devotion and obedience to a teacher may work towards liberation as knowledge might otherwise do. And applying these principles in every direction, the student will begin to realize how man is handicapped by ignorance and how great is the part played by knowledge in human evolution. Men drift because they don't know. They are helpless because they are blind. The man who would finish his course more rapidly than will the common mass of men who would leave the slothful crowd behind as the racer leaves the hack, he needs wisdom as well as love, knowledge as well as devotion. There is no need for him to wear out slowly the links of chains forged long ago. He can file them swiftly through and be rid of them as effectively as though they slowly rusted away to set him free. I think that is a very important part of this book. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop this video right here so that you can look at it again. It's only 19 minutes long. You can look at it again and you can let it incubate. And I'll pick up with the ceasing of karma in the next video.